Hi, everyone, and welcome once more to the Weekly Wisdom with the Web Guys. Today, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you all to Kathryn Rogers. Kathryn is a HR specialist. She's with Face to Face HR, and she's got vast experience in HR. And as we all know, right now, the world is a bit of a mess. I'm sure there's a lot of business owners like myself out there who are at a bit of a loss with a lot of things. There's a lot of negatives going on, but there's a lot of really great stuff going on as well. And
Mm.
uh, Kathryn, thank you very much for joining me. If you want to tell the world who and I and your experience.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me, Brian, and for the very kind intro. I don't know if I'd describe my experience as vast, although I certainly try. So hi everyone, I'm Kathryn from Face to Face HR, as Brian said. I've been in HR for about 18 years now, but just like every other HR professional and every other business owner, I've never had to deal with a global pandemic before. So it's been an interesting few months. I specialise in supporting small business owners. And my style of HR is I try to be very practical, very commercial, and help businesses get to the result that they're trying to get to in the right way for their people as well. Because when you are a small business, when you've got, say, 10 people or 100 people, you're not expected to do the same stuff as the big guys with thousands of people. And part of my job is just kind of help guiding business owners through that and trying to make the whole thing a little bit less stressful.
I think, and that leads me into my first sort of questions to you, really, because when I think of HR as a business owner myself, I think, well, that's something for big companies with hundreds of staff, which is clearly
Mhm.
true. So, where do you sort of see that your services become relevant for any sort of size business? When do you think it's good for companies to start considering using people like yourself? Is it one members of staff? Is it five? What's the sort of the cutting point where you think now it's sensible to look at?
Mm, yeah. Well, I think the service that you would need would vary very much as you continue as you grew. I think from taking on your first employee, it's a good idea to get some advice in terms of what should your contract look like, what legally does it need to do to provide you with the right level of protection, and really clearly set out the expectations on both parties within the relationship, and what other documentation do you need to support that. Um, my usual approach to documentation is that it should be nice and clear, it should be free of jargon, it shouldn't make the employee receiving it feel like they need to go and get a solicitor to read it through, to understand it. And in terms of kind of supporting policies, etc., if they're not going to be used or read and they're not legally necessary, then don't bother. Don't spend the money and the time drafting up a great big thick encyclopedic handbook if it's just going to sit in the cupboard and gather dust. There's an awful lot as a small business that you can accomplish by having a conversation with people and working out the best way forward for both of you.
Um,
Um, as you grow, I mean, it really, again, it's, I guess there's a tipping point for every business owner. Some of my clients only has, say, 4 or 5 staff, but like that security of knowing they've got somebody in the background to have a quick chat with if they come across something that they feel stuck with. Some of my clients have got to kind of hundreds of employees before they've said, actually, yes, we do need somebody to actually manage this function for us. It's not my job to tell any business owner how to run their business. It's my job to help them understand what the laws are in relation to their people, what that might mean in terms of risk, how they can get those best results, and what that looks like in their particular business. So
I
yeah, so a very typical answer, a HR answer, it depends, I
Yeah, yeah,
suppose.
yeah, that's great. I suppose, like in a lot of industries, I suppose a lot of your clients, I'm making assumptions now, comes to you because they have started to experience a problem that they need some professional help and guidance with. Is that a correct assumption?
It's often the starting point, yeah. Usually it's a call because there's a fire to put out, because something's happened and it's got to the point where they think, do you know what, this has gone beyond my comfort zone, beyond my level of expertise. I need somebody to help me through it.
Yeah,
And I think that's really been the driving force for a lot of people getting in touch with me this year, because nobody's had to deal with this before, and the pace of change and the level of information that came out was just so fast and so much that my clients were just saying, just tell us what we need to do, Kathryn, explain it to us and tell us what we need to do. and again, that, that's my job. That's kind of one of the big things I say. It's my job to make my clients' lives less stressful. But yeah, usually there's some sort of defining moment, some sort of event where they think, oh, don't really know what to do here. Let's have a chat with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I know I certainly fall foul of this as well. Is that I think early on in people's business, taking on staff and stuff, they perhaps tend to shortcut things by going online and finding free templates and all that kind of stuff. And I suppose that's a bit of a bane in your life, really, that people do that. But I think that's, again, making assumptions. That's the first
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people.
Absolutely, yeah. It's either something they've found online or something they've brought from a previous business. A contract that they've had from a previous employer, and they've thought, okay, well, that'll work. I'll just take some bits out of it. Or they just don't see the need for it at all, and it's like, well, everything's working fine without it, so why bother?
And I think maybe people make assumptions that taking someone like yourself aboard is financially quite challenging for them. It's very costly, perhaps. Maybe that's.
I think sometimes, yeah. I mean, and one thing I'll always say is, working with somebody to get expert advice proactively is always going to be cheaper than trying to put things right later. But at the same time, I kind of try and quantify it or illustrate it for people by saying my retained service usually costs less than you would spend on your family food shop. So it's not necessarily as financially prohibitive as you think. And myself and most of the other HR dependents and independents I know are usually happy to work pretty flexibly. So if you just want support on a one-off basis, that's absolutely fine. I'm not going to try and push my clients down a route that they don't need. I'm not going to say, oh, you must sign up for a 12-month contract if they don't have they don't have a history of HR issues and they just want help with one particular thing. I'd rather build that relationship around that one particular thing, and then if they want to come back to me in future, great. Then we'll just take it on a case by case basis.
And that sounds great, because I think one of the things I'm finding as I'm doing more and more the chats with people like yourself is that there's a whole world of people who are professional out there and do a fantastic job, and they're actually not as costly as a lot of business owners think they are. So again, there's I think perhaps there's an education piece there to the wider world. So hopefully, by doing more of these things, it opens up eyes to people who perhaps more open to venture into to give it a go. Now,
Yeah,
there's one thing
absolutely.
I wanted to sort of talk about. There's a lot of negative stuff going on out there, for business owners struggling,
Mm-hmm.
very good reasons. So I think we need some positives, shout about the good stuff and
Yeah.
the positive stuff. So what have you done in the last 6 to 8 months that's really been great? For yourself,
Um,
for your customers, that's really made a
mhm.
big impact and a difference.
I think one of the I think one of the most positive things for me is that that my clients are so much more focused on their employees' well-being. And they want to do the right things. They want to be making sure that their people feel taken care of and that they have a route to express their concerns. So with one client, we've kind of developed a questionnaire just through SurveyMonkey, so completely free. Takes a bit of time to adapt and get the information out of it. But we've put together a whole wellbeing program. We're now meeting with the team once a week to talk about, how are they feeling. We've got different actions in place to give them tools to use to handle any stress or anxiety that they're experiencing as this COVID situation continues to go on, and none of us really know how long that's going to be for. And for me, well-being previously felt a bit like, well, we've got a fruit bowl in the office, so that's it, tick, well-being strategy sorted. So seeing that really come to the fore and people be keen to take action and address it is great. I also do have a couple of clients that are growing quite considerably, and against a backdrop of recession and redundancy and unemployment, knowing that there are small businesses out there that are growing and that are looking for people and that are really keen to provide those opportunities, is it's a nice counterbalance to that, and it just shows that it's not all doom and gloom. There are still some businesses out there who are doing really well.
Yeah, absolutely, there certainly is.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I was going to ask you, there's obviously a vast amount of people now finding themselves working from home.
Hmm.
Is there anything sort of as a business owner, if you have sort of set to start work from home, is there any sort of pitfalls we need to look out for there in terms of making sure it's safeguarding our staff and all that kind of stuff that we need to sort of keep in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing to bear in mind is that your health and safety responsibilities as an employer are exactly the same, whether people are sat at their kitchen table, or whether they're sitting in your office premises. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to spend an absolute fortune sending somebody around to risk assess their houses and give them all ergonomic chairs and things. It does mean that you need to give them the tools to make sure that they've set up their workstation in the right way, so you know that they're working in a way that isn't going to cause them any back pain, etc., etc. And that can be as simple as sending them some guidance and a checklist to work through to say, yes, I am sitting in this way, I have got my desk set up, and making that option if they do say, well, I need something to put my laptop screen on, potentially being able to provide that for them. But again, it all comes back to that good old word that crops up in employment law all the time: reasonable. Is it reasonable for that business and for that individual? If somebody's saying, I want a fully customized standing desk or an ergonomic chair that costs several £100s, that might not be reasonable for you. So it's all about that kind of communication, managing expectations, and agreeing something that works for both parties.
I think the biggest thing is if you're in doubt, don't be in doubt. Ask someone who knows.
Yeah.
I saw a horrific thing on one of the newspapers. I know you need to take it with a pinch of salt, but there
Mm.
was an article that came out that there was a specific nursing home that was demanding that their nurses had the flu jab. And I was thinking
Right.
about you straight away, thinking, really? Sounds like a bit
Yeah.
certainly something I would contact someone like yourself about the legalities behind.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, if you think about that specific environment and the potential risk to their client base, because businesses have you've got a duty of care to your employees, but you've got a duty of care to your clients as well. If they could demonstrate that there was a reasonable risk, that their clients protect. But again, I mean, how do you enforce that? Are you going to march all of your employees down to the doctor? Are you going to get somebody to come in and
Right?
administer them a flu jab on site? How are you actually going to do that?
Yeah,
So that's why I think the practicality comes in sometimes.
the dreaded
Um,
common sense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the stuff that I've seen that I find really worrying is where the reports around businesses that are doing remote monitoring of keystrokes and things like that. It's just like that. Just how to how to undermine people and make them feel like that you don't trust them just to get on with their job. You should hire people because they can deliver the right results, not because you need them to sit next to you to know that they're doing that.
Yeah, and that sort of surprises me quite a lot when I see those things because I think most companies when they do the statistics on people working from home shows that people are actually a lot more productive when they work from home in their own
Mm,
environment. So
yeah.
when I see
Well, I
those,
think that's been a really interesting to see the developments in that this year, because I think previously, working from home was almost seen as the ideal, and everyone wants to work remotely. And oh well, we can work from anywhere. It doesn't have to be from home. We could sit in a coffee shop. And I think when people have been pushed to do it, it's been, oh, actually, maybe it's not all that it's cracked up to be. And yes, a bit of flexibility is great, and it's good to have that time at home. And it does mean I can balance certain things around my working life. But I actually miss being in the same place as my colleagues, and communication is harder, and I don't feel as engaged. So it's definitely a two-way street.
we're social animals, aren't we?
Hmm.
We thrive amongst other people. So I agree. There's a balance between the two. Now, listen, this has been really great. I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to thank you an awful lot for coming and taking part in this and taking time out of your very busy diary. To everyone who watches this, I hope you enjoyed these 10 minutes or so that we've had a little bit of a chat. If you have any questions in regards to HR, please contact Kathryn. We
Hmm.
put all Kathryn's details on how to contact her up on this video. Please like and share so we can get this out to as many people as possible, because obviously there's a lot of really important stuff that Kathryn's covered here today. And as a business owner, if you really are having questions, don't just sit and look for free stuff. Contact people like Kathryn, because it is of really high value. So thank you, Kathryn. Thank you for joining me today.
No, thank you very much for inviting me. And just to echo, if anybody does want to get in touch, it's, my first conversation is always on a free, no obligation basis. I'd much rather we had a quick chat and you felt comfortable going away and taking some action yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to mean anything beyond that. But yeah, I'm always happy to have a conversation about how I can help. But yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, Brian, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. And take care, everyone. And we'll see you all again next week.